And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Morning Coffee with myself and Robert Watson. We are back. It's been a little bit of a break. It's been about a week ago. I got a little sinus infection, and so I had to go to the doctor. I wasn't feeling great. I texted you in the morning, and then you had some stuff going on Monday, so we took a little break. But we are back, and we're here to talk about the book and kind of talk a little bit about, we wanted to talk a little bit about TikTok because it's kind of annoying. It's funny how we go to ramp this thing up. We're live here on TikTok, and every so often what happens is they just don't show you who you want to see. So I have to basically manually share this so that Robert can see it so he can hop on here.
Yeah, it's something. This whole idea that they always changing algorithm, always changing everything. It's just gone pretty much always changing. So we go from high views to low views to all over the place. It's a mess.
Yeah, and we had as much as 11 in a second ago, and now it's down to 5. Brenda's over there. Thanks, Brenda, for hanging out with us. It's a life of algorithms that we play with. It seems like.
Absolutely. So do we want to cover a quick thing about politics? Because it's obviously changed immensely over all we have to do is wait a week, right?
Yeah, it's amazing because there's a lot happening. I didn't know if we'll kind of make this a little combo of the book and what's going on because we did talk about the assassination attempt. There's a lot of stuff coming out. We've got some comments over on YouTube about some of the posts that we've been putting out, which I think is hilarious because as we talked about last week, there are people who are like, oh, I'm glad, or it's too bad he missed this and that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you saw the thing with Tenacious D where he said that on camera and then Jack Black, kind of walked back on that deal. And it's insane. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand how people can feel that way. But now we have this hot swap, I guess is what, I don't know if you listen to All In podcast, they're talking about it. They're calling it a hot swap. They throw in Kamala Harris and Biden drops out. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's insane the way that they're doing this deal because now they haven't really given the people the choice to decide who their person is. They've basically tried to save all this campaign money by dropping Harris in there.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I've heard many people mention the fact that no one voted for her in the primary.
Yeah.
I mean, they voted for her as vice president, but nobody voted for her as a president. And I'm like, how is that democracy?
Yeah.
This whole thing that we're supposedly defending. And it's not like I'm an independent. I don't have a horse in this race, right?
Right.
So to speak. But I'm kind of questioning the sales job that they're constantly going on with us, the propaganda they're trying to feed us. It's kind of astounding. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't understand. Like I saw some, like you said, independent. Like I don't know that I would consider myself independent, but I will tell you this: that I look at both sides of this whole deal and decide that way. And I guess that's kind of an independent, But you think about like how that whole deal goes down, and if this was happening on the other side, what would happen? What would they do? It's just like the assassination attempt. Cheadle, the lady who was in charge of this whole deal, resigned yesterday. Finally, she should have resigned the moment that it happened because she wasn't doing her job and acted like it was no big deal. And I don't know if you saw any of that. She got grilled. It was crazy. At one point, someone told her that she was, what did they say? She was lying. And there was one gal who said something, I can't remember what it is now, but like, it's like, you're full of shit. That's what they told her. And she was. I mean, the reality of that whole situation is you don't know what's going on. You think that roof was too sloped, or that roof was too sloped. You didn't have anyone on there.
Yeah.
And if it was on the other foot, like, do you think that they would be after their head if there was an assassination attempt on Biden?
I mean, we should be equally enraged on either side, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole point. We should be absolutely unforgiving about the aspect of this is not how we do politics. I mean, the one thing about growing up in the 60s, right, was that is how we did politics.
Yeah.
You didn't like a leader, but we've thought we had grown past it. But sadly, we have not. So, yeah, it was one of those things that, each week since we've started this little thing, each week the dynamics have changed immensely.
It's amazing
like
to me.
Flipped everything.
Yeah, it's amazing to me too that like if you see this breakdown in the Secret Service, like I said, either way, whatever happened, there's this breakdown in the Secret Service, and you see what's going on. Like,
Yep.
what is going on with the rest of our country? If they cannot keep control of this thing that is supposed to be the most strongest security, protecting the highest powered people in this country, and they have this issue, where's everything else at?
Well, I think your point is extremely well taken. We're at that juncture where maybe a lot of it's a facade, right? Maybe a lot of it's under the banner of exceptionalism, and it's a facade. So we have to be careful that it's a house of cards, right?
Right.
And there really isn't anything like Texas. We had this whole deal about we have this independent power grid and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, a Force One hurricane went through Houston and took out 3 million power in 3 million homes
Right.
for days. And I'm like, wow, what happens? Because listen, I've been in Houston. We've got hit by a five,
Hmm.
and we didn't have power out for a week. So what is going on?
Right.
That's this kind of House of Cards kabuki theater that we've got on. Kind of feels strangely reminiscent, and I say this of the old Soviet Empire. At the end, when everybody knew it was a facade and nobody would buy it anymore, and it was a bunch of old guys running around basically saying, let's keep it together. And that's a question now. Is that where we're at, or are we transitioning? I hope we're transitioning, to something a little bit more effective than, I guess the last 20 years. Not been very effective.
Yeah, and I don't know if I feel like they're talking about like democracy and this is that and blah 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 and how is this really a democratic how is it a democracy when you don't really get to choose? If so Biden drops out, why don't we get to choose who we want? Why don't they have a runoff? Why don't they give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. an option to try and do this? Why don't they give all the other people, and there's not enough time? Well, then how is it really a reality? If there's not enough time, then they should, in my opinion, they should just drop the whole thing. They should just not have a candidate this time because they don't have someone who is vetted by the country. Or
Right, but they have the ability to go to an open convention,
yeah,
which is an open convention is you send your electoral delegates as your state to the convention, and
mhm,
you can have an open convention, and you have representatives there. They kind of address the needs of each state. You see what the inside of a convention looks like. Let's just go ahead and open the convention up, and if that's the way they want to go, then that's the way they want to go. But let's go ahead and vet it. Let everybody give their speeches, that kind of thing. Yeah,
have a
I'd like
debate.
to
Like they
see.
can't set up
Yeah,
a debate right now to get these people in here. Um, I don't know. Supposedly there's like not enough time. This is what they say. There's not enough time, and I don't know. There has to be.
yeah,
They have to make an exception or find a way to find more time to get the right people in there because at this point now you have the choice between two people and that's it. And the main person who got voted to be the candidate is not there.
yeah. Very true. Very true. Well, it's funny because the chapter this week is regrets, right?
Yep.
And it talks about the things that we ultimately regret in life. These are the old research is this is the conversations that the nurses would have in kind of hospice with people that didn't have much time left, and they would basically say, "Hey, what are your true regrets? What do you
Mm-hmm.
miss? What are you going to be sad about?" Right? And it had very strange data, right? Because your thought process is no one sits on their deathbed and says, I didn't spend enough time at the office.
Right.
That's true, right?
Yep.
But it is interesting. The number one regret of people was their education. They didn't go far enough. No one says, surprisingly enough, like you, if I ask you, do you regret your education? You'd go, no, right? You didn't say, oh, I should have got a PhD, right?
Yeah. And the thing with that though, I would say no, I don't regret it. I mean, it brought me so many things. I regret the choice I made in the degree that I got, but I don't regret going to school because I feel like it has made me better at everything that I do, whatever that is. You know, making
And,
more
and,
informed
and
decisions, looking at both sides of things, being able to verbalize, being able to write things down, being able to look deeper, you know, and that doesn't happen with everyone though. So like, that's got to be something that you create on your own, right?
well, it's interesting because you say I regret maybe choosing the degree I chose, and that's fascinating because think about this: the second thing for biggest regrets is career.
Hmm.
So if you think about that, and then of course this romantic relationship, and it's kids, but think about this: you're asking an 18 to
Right.
22ish, 23-year-old to make great decisions about what they want to do with the rest of their life when they want to grow up, right? Which I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And you're asking them to choose a career and you're asking them to do it without a lot of input or understanding.
Yeah.
So I can see where the regret comes from because everybody felt like they needed to make a kind of a choice early on, and it was uninformed.
Yeah. Yep. They're telling you like before you're even done, like basically, like you're not even, I don't know, you're still not even freaking fully developed that you have to make a choice. Like they're telling you to make this choice when you're like 15, you know, like, hey, you got to start thinking about your future. What are you going to do? You know?
Yeah, and you're thinking about the show that's on TV later, not, wow, what does my 401k look like?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't care.
Yep.
And I don't know if we are getting to a point where we need to start talking about what people are passionate about or what they enjoy. And we're really kind of talking about money like when my parents asked me to make a decision about I paid for my own college. But
Yep.
when they asked me to make a decision about college, you know what I did? I got the little thing out that said, what job paid the most?
Yep.
And it was engineer. And I said, well, great. I'm going to go to one of the best engineering schools in the country. Dude, I didn't want to be an engineer.
Yep.
It only took me a year to figure out, oh no, I don't want to be an engineer. So then I
You,
tried computer science, right? And then I went, no, I really don't want to do that. So it kind of like you walk into college, it's a buffet, and you're trying to figure out what to put on your plate.
yep. Wolf on TikTok made a really good point. He says, and putting a hellacious amount of money on the choice, which I think is
Hmm,
hilarious because now
really
we're
good point.
asking this 15-year-old kid, which, you know, at this point you're going to be 18. We're asking you to make a decision with money when you've never made you made maybe, you know, like I made probably $5,000 to $6,000 a summer or throughout the
Yeah.
year. I made my vehicle payment. You don't know how to freaking manage money. Your parents have been buying your damn groceries for you for your whole life, and now you're decided that you're going to have to take this money. It's stupid. And then he followed up with managing money. It's the same thing. Yeah, no one knows how to manage money. It's
Yeah,
insane.
and I that's a great point because not only you placing that bet, but my son who graduated, who's an army officer, he took out $50,000 worth of debt to get through, right?
Yeah.
Even with his military contract. Now, of course, the military's forgiving it slowly over time. So when he puts in, I think, like 5 years, they forgive it all. But it doesn't matter. He made this big bet, $50,000 on 32 black, right?
Yep.
Which is like, I hope this is what I like.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, he chose leadership, which was his major. And it actually was a fairly brilliant choice for a guy who's going to go on to be an army officer, right? It's
Yep.
not his field of expertise, but you can't be hurt by learning to be a better leader,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So he actually did make a really good choice, but it's hard with my second son. He's still trying to figure out what will make him happy. So this whole thing about regrets is it's really people haven't unpacked it enough to realize it's you're asking someone really, really young to make a choice, and there's no surprise that they have regrets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's pretty crazy. I got to talk about this Magic Mind. Hey, you know, I've been using this for a while now. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but I started using it because, as Robert knows, I've been waking up and I'm freaking tired. And the normal coffee doesn't do the job. This is kind of a natural energy shot. And what's funny about it is I've been taking it for a couple weeks now. and it's been helping get through that. But it was to get that burst of energy that the coffee, that the Red Bull wasn't giving me. Really good stuff. I got to send some over to you, like I've been talking about. Once we get your new address settled, I'll get you over a couple bottles and you can try it out. But you guys can go check it out at magicmind.com. Use the code WEST20. You'll get 40% off your first subscription, 20% off a one-time purchase. Nikki just got hers yesterday, so super cool. If you guys want to check that out, like I said, use the code WEST20 at checkout. Those decisions that we make, really are, and it's like we talked about. I even at 32, 33, I mean, how long has it been? I have to think about when I went back to college. I still made the same decision that I made when I was 18, and it was the wrong one for me. That's a tough part. But like you said, you typically can't use. I think the biggest problem that we had was, like, I think we talked about this. It started in like the H Bush, right? Like, or was it before that? But when they started saying everyone needs to go to college, right? And then they started generating these degrees that are like, hey, liberal arts. What's that mean? That means go give me your money and go flip a burger. Like, you can have a degree and then you'll make more money. I mean, it's insane that they did that. And then now everyone's going to college, and just like Wolf was talking about, hey, you gotta spend all this money to get this degree that you'll never get a return on your investment.
Mm-hmm. And in the old style, prior to college being the answer or the end all be all, was apprenticeships programs. And matter of fact, Europe still runs that way, right? College is not for the masses. College is for people that want to teach. College is for doctors, lawyers, but the rest of everybody else is apprentices.
Yep.
They go off and they learn how to run a hotel business. I mean, you could go to college for learning how to run a hotel business, or you could go learn to run a hotel by being in the hotel business.
Yep.
Same thing they tell, an heir to a whatever business, and they tell them, okay, you're going to go start in the mailroom. Why? Because you got to learn the business from the bottom up.
Right.
We can't, and I think some of this with college was the idea that we could skip some of the steps of learning to be in the business. Like, if you go to college and you take marketing, that teaches you how to be a good salesman.
Right.
Really? I don't think so. But I mean, does it teach you about marketing techniques and ideas? Yeah. But does it teach you to be a good salesman? Not really.
Yeah. And, education was the same way. It's like getting into teaching. You sit there and you go to school, and the number one thing you want to do is student teach. Like, you have to get through 3 years before you can go student teach. To go actually sit there and stand next to someone who is doing the job that you want to do and watch them do it, and then learn how to do it. And I'm a proponent for this. I mean, this is going to sound really, I don't know. It doesn't sound stupid to me, because I think that you could do anything if you sat next to someone and watched them do it and they did a good job at it. I don't necessarily know that you need college in my mind, but it gives you, it teaches you how to research and how to kind of keep furthering yourself. Wolf was saying that it's just like a test of how long of endurance to see how long you can do what you want to do to make sure you want to do it. But I don't know. It's insane. Like, if I'm one of those people, and there's lots of people who can learn on the job by doing it. And now we're sending them to go waste all this money to figure out how to do it. And I'm just glad that these vocational jobs are coming back, like being a plumber, being like, they're going, like, it kind of makes this curve, right? Now we need people back in tech, because we're not going to have people to build houses. We're not going to have people to be able to plumb our house, frame our house, paint our house. Like, these are all things that are important, and those people are disappearing.
Yeah. And one of the things that happens, and I can talk about this from a pilot's perspective. You do have ground school. You learn basic concepts, basic ideas, but you're paying a pilot to fly a plane. You're not paying a pilot to necessarily nail the ground school. You're paying a pilot to be very, very functional in the air. And the reality is it's see one, do one, teach one, right?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No question that listen, because when you take off, that your first day as a student pilot is taking off. Really easy, right? But you can also crash. real easy. You learn how to take off. The second thing they do is they teach you how to land, and they teach you how to land by pulling out the power.
Yep.
Right. And so basically, when you're flying a propeller, every landing, I know people are going to hate to hear this, is actually a crash landing.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do is not make it too hard.
It's
So,
funny. I'm thinking about, as you're talking about it, like visually, it's going through my head, like taking off. You're just, you visualize this. I don't know, as I've never flown a plane before, but I'm just thinking
yeah.
you pull the thing back and now you're going up. But like you think about your landings when you land in an airplane, when the pilot's flying, they're way rougher than the takeoff. And so, you picture you're kind of waving a little bit like this. They got to get it flat. They got to be straight down the line, and then they drop it down, and it's either bumpy or you always see the little planes like the wheels kind of touching left, right, then you're flat, and you're like, oh man, good thing they didn't bump too hard because they probably had to flip that thing.
Yeah. And you do realize that your first couple of landings are, not real smooth. And so then what you do as you're going through things as a pilot is you're working to get them smoother and smoother
Yeah.
so that you can't feel when I land. That's how good you're getting at the end. It's like, oh, hold on a second. I'm going to land on the right wheel
Yeah.
first. And they're like, you can land on wheels? I said, uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you learn to get control of the plane. But the only way you do that is doing what? Up and down, over and over and over again, right? It's what's called staying in the pattern. You
Yeah.
take off, stay in the landing pattern, come back around, do it again, come back around, do it again, come back around, do it again. 1,000 landings later, you're okay. You're pretty good at it.
You mean you got
But
to
it's just
practice
like,
that?
yeah, you pretty much do.
I tell you what, the last
But
few
that,
flights I've been on, I think that guy needs some more practice.
well, yeah, I felt some really rough landings too, and I'm like, ooh, he's not going to feel good about that. And so what happens too? It's a little funny story is pilots will stand around at airports, especially the smaller parts, and we'll grade landings. We can't
Okay.
help it.
Yeah.
We'll sit there and look and go, okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Because because he's got a crosswind, and so he puts one wheel down into the crosswind and then sets the other one down real gentle. We're like, yeah. And then when we see a bad one, we're like, ooh, he's not going to be proud of that.
Yep.
Because you can see the boom, boom, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty insane, that flying thing. And I can only imagine, flying this even bigger thing, like these freaking commercial liners that we get put on. It's like, I know that they do a lot of the flying for you, it seems like, when they get up to speed, but they got to get up to speed.
Yeah. And what it is that there's just so much going on in a large craft that, this is why you have a pilot and co-pilot, because there's so much going on
Yep.
that the pilot is taxed. He's multitasking at a real high level. And so that's the reason for all the complications. And, you have, 300 souls on board.
Hmm.
You'd kind of like to get them from one place to the other rather safe.
Yep. Exactly. Pretty amazing. The chapter, this Ars Victorious is the book. The chapter is regrets. Um, as I read that this morning, I just wanted to kind of say, we think a lot of times, even with regrets, um, I think that for us, and we talked about this a little bit, that when you regret something in general, a lot of times you don't regret doing it, you regret the outcome. And
Yeah.
so it's funny that I look back and I think that this is something that has been changed over time, because it used to be like, you think about like, what is people ask you that question. It's always like, what is the one thing that you would change if you could change it? And I don't necessarily feel like, for me, there is anything that I would change. And I think that's the difference between having that positive mindset and that negative mindset, is the fact that it sucked when it happened, but it taught me something. And taking those lessons from that regret, even if you regret it, would you change it?
Yeah, because again, you have to undo the lesson,
Yep.
right? And a lot of times what happens is the door got shut, so you climbed through the window,
Hmm.
and you actually got something that you were much happier with in the end result. And you're like, would I have gotten there? And the answer is no.
Yep.
So then you have to step back and say, it's good. And people are like, well, what if you went back 20 years? Well, what if you married a different woman? Now you lose your kids.
Yep.
I mean, all kinds of things. As you start to unravel your history, you go, no, 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 no. I like things just the way they are,
Yeah.
right? Good, bad, and different.
Yeah. And I think that that's a tough one because I listen to these people. Like I listen, my brother is a pretty good proponent about this. Every time I get with him, he talks to me about like, man, I missed out. I should have went and played football in college and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going, I had the same opportunity and I chose a different path and I'm very happy with it because if, like you said, I unwound the last 24 years of my life, I lose my wife, I lose my kids, I lose my house, I lose all those experiences that I had and I just wouldn't undo that. Like there are regrets that I handled it the way that I handled it, but again, the next time I handled it differently or I will handle it differently.
Yeah. And you just kind of look at it and go, you know what? I'm content that, my life choices are what they are, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's the thing we have to ask ourselves. And that's what regret is really there for.
Yeah.
Regret is there for us to motivate us to change. If we are not really truly happy where we are and we have regrets about getting there, well, you can change it now.
Yep.
You can change tomorrow. And that, I think, is probably the main driver in the understanding of regret. We're not supposed to sit around and lament it. We're supposed to use it as motivation and fuel to change.
Yep. And understand that failure is just a part of life. If you failed at that, if you have that regret, what can you do to change it? What can you do to reinvent the wheel? How can you get there? Just because you didn't get there the first time doesn't mean you can't get there again and being able to keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great episode. I appreciate you hanging out with me, Robert.
Absolutely.
I think people just need to understand that we have to continue to move forward even when we have to take that side step.
Thank you all today, Steph. Good to see you.
Yep. We will be back on Monday. Come check us out. It is, I tell people it's 5:00 Mountain Time, which is my time. That's when I do this. It's 6:00 Robert's time, 7 on the East Coast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Please make sure that you subscribe. You can go subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. It's under Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley right now. If we will change that sooner or later. Once we get that figured out, you can go to Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley, subscribe to the YouTube. Please do a review on the podcast, comment on the YouTube, help us to get the word out there, share it out. And until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success. I mean, I'm just saying that. I'm used to saying that, but we will see you in a couple days.
Enjoy.